Good evening. It is I, Rankar. It is my pleasure to be with you in this evening. The meditation seemed a little mixed up tonight, but it was meant to fill you up with both the light of God that was coming down toward you, but also to stimulate each one of your chakras. So that brings to you the greatest and the best of health, the information that you need, the grounding that feels good for you, that keeps you level-headed in your life, and also helps you to find the correct attitudes and the correct inspiration that you need. We have already talked to you about the fact that you are one with God in all ways, because God created this creation, and everything in this creation was brought forth from the substance of his own being. That means that everything in this creation is made of God stuff. And that means that you too are made of God. And because you are made of God, you are always part of God, because that which is created is always remains part of its creator. And because God is the source of all knowledge and all things, and you are also created of that power, that energy, that substance, that being, which is God, that you too have all the power and all the energy of God. When you choose to access it, it needs for you to recognize and acknowledge the perfect oneness you have with God. And when you acknowledge that perfect oneness with God, then you can come forth with anything that you need in the way of knowledge and understanding. And you can connect with God's healing power and energy that is part of himself. And you can send it out so that you can become a healer of others. You can be a font of wisdom when others are in need of answers and questions. You too can seek within yourself and give out the answers. And as you ask to be an extension and a messenger of God, you too will give the information and you will give guidance and help to others. And you are the source of your own guidance and help. Well, all you need to do is acknowledge and recognize that oneness with God and seek and ask your questions. And so it is, you will come to greater understanding of whatever it is you need to know. And so I give you this reminder in this evening, and I am now ready to take your questions. If anyone has a question, would you please unmute yourself and just speak up?
Hi, it's Jeff. I have a question about my house.
Your house?
Yes, I am refinancing it. I've run into a few troubles with it, and I felt not so good about the people in the past who were working on it. So now I'm working with somebody I feel really, really good about. So I just want to see how that's going to unfold.
Oh, so you are asking me whether this new person will be able to to supply you with a mortgage on your current house?
A refinance, yeah.
Yes, a refinance, because of course you would pay off the first mortgage. Well, I do not usually answer those kind of questions, but I can assure you, this individual, one moment, please. They are optimistic, and they are, I want to say, forceful. And they will watch after the details that are need to be completed. As long as your house is satisfactory, it should and be within their criteria for the amount of money that you wish. This should be successfully created. If you have already checked this out with this person, you will be able to rely confidently upon them. If you have not asked whether your house fulfills all the criteria that his source of money would demand, it is important that you do so. So that you can be the confident person that you wish to be over the success of this refinance that you wish to do for your house. And you, of course, every source of funds, when they are loaned to you, wants to be assured that they will be able to be paid back. And so that is part of the questions that you need to ask of this person who is supplying the mortgage, whether he feels you are qualified, that the bank or mortgage company will feel that you are qualified, and that the house is qualified. Those are the three qualifications that you will need to check on.
Thank you.
Do you have another question?
I do. I always wanted to know about animals in the spirit world because I grew up in many different faiths that said animals have no souls. And I never believed that because I felt animals have come to me in dreams. And I would just like to know if your animals that you loved, that were part of your life, are in the spirit world.
Yes, of course. All animals have souls. Plants have souls. Every living thing has souls because everything is made up of the substance of God. We were all created. And you notice I used the word we. That includes me. For I have been on the physical plane in the past. I am simply not there at this time. And I seek to be of service in this way by speaking through the medium and by helping you to understand things. So yes, every living thing on the planet, and indeed the planet itself, has a soul, so to speak, a life force that is part of itself. Because that which from which it was created, which of course is God, since he created it, brought it forth. And the only thing there was at the time was himself. So he brought it forth from the substance of his own being. And it is a reflection of his ideas in manifestation. And so everything, including the planet, has its own life force that is part of it. Of course, your rocks, your dirt, your hills, these things are not sentient, but they have a life force of their own. Your plants are more sentient than the rocks and the minerals. And they also have their consciousness. And of course, all the animals have their consciousness. Now, as to the soul, they have, when they pass on, they do return to their own oversoul, we will call it, their own special place, which every type of animal has their own special place, their own group soul in which they all belong. And so when they pass out from the physical world, their souls move into the group soul that would be for them, such as if you had dogs or cats or cows, and that you were fond of these animals, but these animals all had souls of their own, and they would return to that soul from which they had sprung, from which they came about, manifested. And so, in a sense, they do not have a life in the same way that those of us who have inhabited the planet Earth have when we pass on. For our souls tend to be more individualized. It is hard to explain, but we do have individual consciousnesses which continue our identity, let us put it that way, continue our identity when we are in spirit. And when we are in spirit, we are aware of the many of the things that we have learned in past incarnations and in all the things that we have learned. And so this remains part of ourselves, but at the same time, we are returning to our own oversoul, our own God, our own soul with which we are one. I do not know if animals retain their individual awareness of lives on the physical planet. I believe they do not, but they are individuals all the same who reincarnate. And so those pets, those animals that you loved, will probably, well, are not with you in the sense that they were with you on the physical plane. But since they were part of your life on the physical plane, they do remain in part of your memory. And so in that way, you continue to have a relationship with them. I have not tried to look to see if it is possible for me to see the lives of those animals that I may have been close to in my own life. So I cannot speak as to whether it is possible for you, once you transition, to be aware of whether your pet or animal has reincarnated, whether they are still alive. No, they are alive in spirit as individuals. I believe not. They tend to lose their individual identities. That is because for many of them, there is not sufficient, I will say, brain power when they are on the physical world. They are guided by instinct. Their brains work quite efficiently to tell them the ways in which they should behave. And so they know what foods to eat. They communicate with one another on their own species. They learn and know all the things they need to survive when they are in the physical realm. But as many of them do not remember time and are not aware of passage of time, cannot remember, many of them cannot learn from what they have experienced in the past. Some animals cannot retain, so they cannot develop higher levels of knowledge and understanding. And so it is really dependent upon what species you are speaking about, on whether they would have a memory of a life with you. So I cannot answer that question fully and properly, but that is the best that I can do at this time.
Thank you.
I hope it is helpful to you. Do you have another question?
I don't want to take away from anybody else who has questions. I can give them a chance.
Yes. Does anyone else have a question? Please speak up.
Hi, this is Charlotte.
Hello, Charlotte.
Hi. Yeah, I'm going through a very tough time worrying about my son, Daniel, who is 60 years old and has the 3-year-old and a 1-year-old in Dallas, Texas. And he's right now in a hotel there trying to get to see them for as much time as they'll allow him. And he's coming back on Thursday. And he's going to be with me because his house has been destroyed by the water main break and hasn't done anything about it. So he's got walls and floors caved in and no power. It's really deteriorating as we speak. And I don't think he's really doing anything about it, hoping that something will happen and that the insurance company will miraculously say that they will pay for all the damage, which, as I mentioned before, they had canceled the policy. And I don't think he has a lawyer. It's very difficult to get information from him. And he is a grown man. I mean, he's, 60 years old. I have, daughters that are in their 50s that are grandparents already. And here he is, a father of two very young children. And he has had this Peter Pan kind of life where he's a musician and hadn't really had much responsibility. And so now he's facing these major problems, and it is stressing me a bit, and I don't want it to affect my health, but I don't know how to handle it. I don't want to enable him, but I realize he's coming back here as his home, and he knows there's room for him here. And I don't know how long he plans to stay, and I really don't know how to handle it. I just don't know what to do, and I really would appreciate your help.
Yes, well, of course, the first thing you should not do is to worry about it, because that what you think about, you attract to yourself.
Yes.
And if you are worrying, you are thinking about all the possible horrible opportunities or possibilities that may manifest. And so you are thinking about all the wrong things. You need to train yourself to start making affirmation as to his welfare. Make statements such as, I know that Daniel will solve all his problems. I know that he has good ideas. I know that he can figure it out. I know that he will take the right steps and do the right things. I know he will make the right decisions to bring about success in his life. You have to start thinking things like this instead of allowing yourself to think about
doom and gloom.
The doom and gloom, and asking yourself that question, how can he possibly solve everything? How can he do this? How can this get done? This is what is making you crazy.
Yes.
And so you just need to start trusting God to solve his problems. Now, if he has lived a bit of a Peter Pan existence, it is possible that this is simply the time he has to grow up and begin to take more responsibility and be a little less Peter Pan. And of course, you can help him with this by telling him that he can stay with you for a month, 2 months, 3 months, however long you like, but that he has to begin to take action, or you will not let him stay longer. Do you understand?
My daughters are saying that I should move, that I should sell the house and move to a smaller place. They know their brother, and they know that he's been known to take advantage of other people, including me. And so they said there's no reason for me to stay in this house. But I don't
That is true.
But I don't want to rush. I don't want to rush and make the wrong decision. I really don't know. I can't envision myself somewhere else at this point.
Well, I understand that problem that you are looking at. And what you need to do then is, if you wish to stay in your home, because this is your home and you do not wish to move, make his availability to live with you contingent upon him taking action to take care of his problems. To decide to sell his house, that is the best solution for him, to sell his house and his land, because the land is probably worth more than his house, which is now fallen apart, as you say. And he can get a lump sum of money which then he can use to either purchase another house or rent for a while, whatever it is that he needs to do to provide his own living quarters.
Yes, and right now he is unemployed. He is not working, so there's no income. There's no cash flow. He's a musician and he worked at Juilliard, which he's no longer at. And I think I mentioned to you, he has eye problems with his detached retinas, which kind of make it difficult for him to do certain things, including driving on highways.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this is exactly why he should be selling what's left of his home.
Mhm.
He should seek out a real estate agent and he should see, what can I get for this home in this condition? Because there is such a demand for, if he lives in a good location, there is such a demand for housing that someone who would like to build their own house, they can pick up the property.
Mhm.
Not having to take they will be able to sell it. And this is what he has to investigate, because he has no money to even rebuild his house. Is that what you are saying to me?
Well, he hasn't been very truthful. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to, ask him and want an answer as to how much he has saved, because he's a bit of a gambler with the stock market, and I think he's lost a lot more than gained. And so I'm
Yes.
not sure what he has at this point.
Yes, but Charlotte, you should not do that.
Oh,
Simply say that he can only stay with you for as long as he is taking actions to improve his situation.
mhm.
We do not wish to leave him homeless with no
No.
place, but he has to begin to take action to solve his problems. And if he takes actions, you will allow him to stay with you as long as is necessary for him to complete what his plans are. So therefore, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes. Now, see, he is a dreamer and he thinks that he might be able to win her back by buying something in Texas so that he could see the children and that maybe she would want to also be
Well,
with him.
he could buy something in Texas for himself so he can be near his children. He
Mhm.
should sell his house here and get rid of that problem and get some
Maybe
money.
rent rather than buy, because I would hate to see him buy something and then nothing works out and he's lost again,
No, he can continue to live in Texas. You are making it contingent upon him getting back together with his girlfriend
Mhm.
and seeing his children. That may not happen for him. But if he is in Texas, he can at least see his children and he can demand parental rights,
Mhm.
which he cannot do when he is in New Jersey.
Right.
It will not work on his behalf between two states. And so therefore he needs to get rid of what remains of his property in New Jersey. Hopefully that he'll get more than enough money to pay off his current mortgage if he has one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he will be able to go to Texas, find a place to rent,
Yeah.
and see what he can do.
All right. That makes sense. Thank you so much for listening.
You are most welcome. But it is up to him to make these decisions. You do not have to tell him these things. You need to make affirmations for yourself, saying that he is capable, he will solve his problems, he has good ideas. Do you understand?
Yes. Yes.
You make those kind of decisions, and the right decision will be made and will be undertaken.
Thank you. I feel a little better. Thank you. Okay.
I am glad. Are there other questions?
Hi, this is Isabel. Could you,
Isabel.
excuse me, could you speak a little bit about the ascension that it's occurring on Earth from your perspective?
Are you referring to the ascension of individual souls, in that some people regard this as being the ultimate step of an incarnation in which they have realized their true divinity, and or is there a different type of ascension that you are thinking about?
I'm speaking mostly about what a lot of people are talking about now, a lot of speakers and spiritual workers, that we as a human race is ascending into a higher vibration, and the Earth therefore is ascending as well.
Well,
What is your perspective on that?
yes, I will give you my perspective. One moment, please.
Thank you.
Now, ascension in that sense of the word, the way people do speak of it, is meant to increase people's optimism. The truth is that having difficult times are ways in which people learn, and they can make new decisions and take new actions for themselves. This often results with greater understanding and success in their lives. So that these people who are speaking that we are ascending as a society, it is an optimism that they are expressing. I do not wish to say we are not ascending as a society, but the truth is that we cannot ascend as a society. All we can do is ascend as individuals. If enough individuals come about with a way of thinking and a way of action, which increases the well-being of everyone, meaning themselves, if there are enough people who learn about correct actions, have guiding moral authority, and guide their lives appropriately, they will bring about an ascension. But this will happen on an individual basis. As with all things, perhaps the best example is that you have heard with the COVID-19 that there is something called herd immunity. That is to say that enough people have had the virus or have had the vaccines, that less and less people will be able to be sick, and more people will be healthy all the time. So therefore, society becomes healthier because everyone is either already had the disease or is now properly vaccinated. Yes, there will be a few people who could still come down with the disease, but most of the people will not. That brings about herd immunity. So it is the same with ascending as a society. You can only ascend through individual actions. When everyone takes the right actions, makes good decisions, is loving, is kind, is helpful to other people, then it is that you will find your society will be transforming itself into a more loving, wonderful place. But it will occur through the individual actions of people, not as a society. And so when people speak of we are ascending and we are going to be better someday, sometimes, unfortunately, this can have the result of people thinking they don't have to do the work. And the work must be done on an individual basis. In order to have an ascension, a transcending of what has been in the past, there must be a lot of people doing the work to make their lives happy, healthy, that they are productive, that everyone contributes to society, that they share, that they love one another, that they inspire one another. All these things must be done in order for there to be an ascension. So although there are always people who speak of ascensions, both personal as well as general for a society, it must be remembered that it is individual work that will make it happen. Will not happen easily. There have been times in the past, in the very remote past, where societies have been destroyed by other societies. And sometimes the societies that were destroyed, those societies are replaced by better societies. Sometimes, not always. There is no automatic ascension. So I do not know if that answers your question, and I do not wish to quell any optimism on your part, but you need to realize that you have to be the best that you can be, and you have to do the best for all those who are around you and yourself. And this, perhaps, will be the tipping point that will bring about, in, as they use the term, an ascension. But it always comes from individuals. Now, you should not be discouraged by my words. You should merely look at your own responsibility to contribute to this ascension. Now, I know you to be an ethical and kind person, that you try to be as good as you can be, and that is all you can do. Or then you are contributing your bit to this ascension. And perhaps it will come about, but it is, I am sorry to say, unlikely that there will be a mass awakening of people to a higher order and a higher level of thinking. It requires discipline, and it requires self-responsibility. And your society has not been trending towards self-responsibility. They have been trending toward abdication of responsibility. When they are looking for governments and other people to take care of themselves and other people. You see, many people have the opinion that government should take care of people who are ill or incapable of taking care of themselves. They do not take the responsibility to do it themselves. And this is what will stop the ascension from taking place, is because people can make this ascension only by taking responsibility for others in their actions. And this will not happen. People take care of themselves Some people take care of others, giving of their wealth, giving of their time, but most of society is only interested in taking care of itself. But if everyone, including those today who may be ill and can't contribute much to society, but many of them work very hard to do their bit, to work, to try and contribute to society. It is that which is needed in order for an ascension to take place, as I understand the ascension that some spiritual leaders are referring to. I hope that has not ruined your enthusiasm for the possible subject.
Not at all. It actually gave me a lot of encouragement.
Good.
Thank you so much.
You are most welcome. Are there other questions? Jeffrey, do you have another question? No one else is speaking up.
I guess I could just ask one last question before I go. And of all the years, I've always wondered about spirits, and I feel very attached to spirit since I was a child. I don't know how to ask this because I think I've always asked this, but the spirit world, where is it?
Well, the answer to that is it is everywhere, since it is non-substantial. It is not since it has no physical manifestation, it is in intelligence, you might say, in the mental world. Since none of us in spirit have bodies, we do not need to take up space. But we have a consciousness. And we are all brought together into one life force with all these individual consciousnesses. And so when you ask where spirit is, it is anywhere and everywhere. Since we do not have physical bodies, we do not need space. You may look at God as an all-knowing intelligence that existed before anything else came into existence. And you know and are aware of the theory of the Big Bang, saying that there was nothing. And then all of a sudden, everything began to manifest from a particular point. And they can date the universe back to like 1 second before the Big Bang, when there was nothing. And then suddenly everything began to bring into being. And you are aware, I am sure, that creation has not stopped, that God continues to create. And this universe continues to grow, slowly larger and larger, over the thousands and thousands and thousands of years that are created by time. At some point in the universe, it will begin to contract and everything will go back to where it was. And that is our source, and our source is within God. So I don't know if that answers your question, or whether you would like me to try to explain it further, but it begins to be very difficult to imagine a place without space, without time. And that is the mental world. You may think of your dreams, that which goes on in your head when you are sleeping. And they are fantastic dreams, and they are many times you could see exactly what is happening in your dreams and compare them to your life. And you know that it is your mind thinking about these dreams. It is your subconscious talking about your life to you. And yet that takes no space. And even time, dreams seem to take so long, but they are often over in an instant. The length of the dream is very short in time, but it feels to be infinite to you in your mind while you are sleeping. It is going on. It is very hard to explain, but there is no space and time within your head, in your consciousness. Your consciousness is continuing. Sometimes it sleeps and your subconscious takes over. Yes, it is very interesting and almost impossible for me to describe. But life in spirit is nothing but an awareness. The same awareness that you have of yourself when you sleep. It is there. It continues. But you may not remember it in the morning. And you are now consumed by your daily life and the physical world that is around you. And so if you think and realize that everything that you experience is all the result of how you perceive things, that hard desk that is in front of you, the computer screen, this is your mind making it what it is. It is merely energy that is radiating forth. And some of the energy is reflected in your mind as colors. Some of it comes to you and it has words and it has music and sound. And there are things that you touch, but it's your interpretation of your mind that is saying what you are feeling. You taste things, and that too is an interpretation of your mind. There is no ultimate reality that you can know because everything comes to you through your mind, your conscious mind. And as a result, this knowledge, this understanding is your reality. Everyone on this earth is their own God in a way, because they create their own reality. You are all the creators of your own reality. And so that is the answer to your question. It is all in your head. It does not take up space. It does not take up time. It is all in your head because it is all how your brain interprets the energies that are all around you. Yes, everything you experience is your creation. And so when you are happy, you have created your own happiness. When you are sad, you have created your own sadness. When you are angry, it's not because of what happened, it's because your mind said, this shouldn't be, and it made you, and you react with anger. Everything that is your life, is your creation. And so I know I've answered your question, and I hope you can understand it enough to decide to make your life as wonderful and as good as you can. And it is the same answer for Charlotte, that she needs to think that everything will be perfect and work perfectly. Her son will do what he needs to do. He will solve his own problems. And she creates that world for herself, not one in which her son is a musician and a Peter Pan character who prefers not to think and prefers not to work in traditional ways. But she needs to think that he has all the responsibility that he needs, and he takes the right steps and the right actions. And so it is for you, Jeffrey, in your life, that you, if you want a better life, it is up to you to think better thoughts. It's as simple as that, which I also know is also quite hard. Are there other questions?
That was beautiful. Thank you for that.
You are
Yes.
most welcome.
I thank you as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question as a result of that. It's kind of unusual. It's kind of doesn't really matter, but I've always assumed and known that the universe is expanding. It's always been an assumption that God is still creating and going forward and creating more and more and more. And then, of course, in the Eastern religions, and you just made a reference to it, at some point there will be a decreasing or a retraction, which is kind of like the breath of God that's been assumed.
Yes.
I'm just curious, have you ever been incarnate?
Have I ever been what?
Incarnate,
Oh, yes.
when there was a retraction universe?
Oh, was I ever incarnate in a retraction? I would know.
Because I would think that maybe things are so different we couldn't imagine that, because we're always thinking things are getting bigger and better and further out. When scientists are proving that the universe is expanding, and in a universe which is contracting, the scientists would be proving that they're in a contracting environment. So would people be thinking in smaller terms? I'm just, I know it's a dumb question, but it's a big basis upon which you're experiencing your universe.
Yes, it is not a dumb question. Do people think smaller when we are expecting it to be contracting? This is what.
Yeah, that's kind of the ramification of it, but it could be many, many levels. Like, you know what I'm talking. I think you get the idea of what I'm trying to say.
I believe so. As there is no awareness of the expansion of the universe to an individual in his own life, so there would be no awareness of a contraction of the individual, meaning the individual would not notice the contraction. Now, it may be able to be measured just as science has managed to measure the fact that the universe is expanding. But to you and to all those who are present on this call and elsewhere in the world today, there is no awareness of the expansion. In other words, we don't get bigger. Our words have the same timbre. The sky is the same color. But there are more universes that we are discovering, that we can see. And it is possible that the way that this universe is expanding is by the creation of new universes. Well, we see those in the the telescopes. And so that may be the way in which science is able to prove that the universe is expanding. No, I do not expect that you would be able to exist or to sense a contraction of the universe. Now, if you have going to ask more questions, you have to speak up a little bit. If I haven't answered fully, you need to speak up a little bit more so I can hear your questions better.
Yeah, no, that's good enough. I know you're having trouble hearing, and I'm speaking very loud into the computer. But the thing is that my consciousness keeps expanding. So, in a sense, my universe is expanding. If I was in a contracting universe, would that affect my consciousness from expanding?
Your consciousness is expanding because you are taking in more information and becoming aware of more things. It's not expanding because the universe is expanding.
Yeah,
It's expanding because you are becoming more aware. And your brain is quite capable of understanding very large amounts of information when people choose to understand in this way. So when it contracts, your consciousness could still be expanding, since your personal awareness is what you are speaking about, that it is continuing to expand, to understand more fully that which happens and that which is going on and why. You begin to see the interconnection between those things that you are aware of and other things that you become aware of. And so that brings you greater understanding and greater knowledge. And that is why you say your consciousness is expanding. But you are still expanding within a very small portion of the universe.
sure. I understand. It was a dumb, like I said, it was a facetious question in a way.
I do not believe that you intended it to be facetious.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions? It seems like no one has any other questions for this night.
I have another question, if I may.
Oh, yes, please.
So when does the soul enter the body? Is it at conception? Is it when we are born? Or is it somewhere in between conception and birth?
Yes. It is somewhere between conception and birth. This is when you decide to reincarnate, I don't know, we say you get guidance. It means you're friends, and you do have friends in spirit, but they're people that you have shared lifetimes with. They give you counsel, opinions, just as they might on the earth, when you were on the earth plane. And they help you look for availability for the new babies that are being born. And also what they advise you as to what types of situations you want to be born into, what times of year, what families, this type of information. And they then you look for this availability It is the only way I can think of it to describe it on the physical plane. Availability of parents with about to have new babies. And you make the choice, or what has been recommended to you, you take a choice. And you begin to live very close to your parents to be as a baby. And so sometimes spirits enter into the fetus, I will use your term for an unborn baby, into the fetus to be aware of the development, and they may exit again. For the development and the feeding, this building of the body is something that is determined on the physical plane automatically. And it does reach a point where the fetus is fully formed and working. Now, most people will choose to enter into a fetus at that time, after it is fully formed, and be with the parents from that time on. But some continue to, I will say, move in and out, but in general, you stay with it after the baby is fully formed. And so that is the answer to your question. Do you have a follow-up question on that?
So I understand what you're saying. So there has to be conception before a soul even entertains the idea of being in that body. What happens? Let's say the soul is looking into that fetus to incarnate into, but it's not fully formed yet. And at some point, there's an issue, a medical issue, and there's a miscarriage, or maybe the mother decides to have an abortion. Something happens and the baby does not get born. What happens then if the soul is already in the fetus?
Oh, well,
Is it like a normal death that the soul just goes back into spirit and
yes, the
looks
soul
for
would
another
just,
vessel, if you will?
yes, it would be just the soul will go back into spirit. Yes, it is like very much like a normal death, except there has been almost no experience in the life. So therefore, there would be nothing that they would take from that. As a matter of fact, if the fetus is not going to survive, if it is going to be aborted, there is an awareness of this. The spirit does not look at this as an opportunity for a life until the decision is made by the parent or parents that this baby is going to live, if at all possible.
And while all this is going on, in the soul going back and forth until it literally attaches to the body, is there, at the soul level, is there communication between the baby's soul to be and the parent's soul? Is there some kind of an agreement, or do they communicate? Is there a relationship that already develops at the soul level?
Yes, sometimes the relationship has already been developed, as you have phrased it, has already been created for purposes of karmic relationships that will continue, such as particularly in the case of babies who are not totally healthy, when they are born and require extra work, very often it is been predetermined before the pregnancy is even created that this particular set of parents, this child will come to this particular set of parents, because then there is simply a karmic relationship that needs to be lived on the physical plane, that 3 or 2 of the people involved, and perhaps even the grandparents and other family members, such as siblings, that many people have already made agreement to come together in this way.
So am I understanding correctly that in certain cases, there's an agreement in communication, even pre-conception?
Yes,
Wow, that's amazing.
that there
Wow.
are always the possibilities. You realize, being on the physical plane, there are things that sometimes happen that you call accidents. And accidents are not always foreseen. So that occasionally, although these agreements may be made, there is something doesn't come together properly once the physical plane. You see, let me just digress a little bit. Everyone enters into the physical plane. Spirit is your soul. So we're not creating a soul. We are taking a soul that already exists and giving it an opportunity to have a life in which it can create. Spirit always comes with a plan in mind that what they will do. But because of circumstances, because of things that happen on the physical plane, many of which cannot be predicted, because you don't come into a life that is fully determined. You come into a life which has a roadmap, so to speak, has an outline that you want to have. You're going to have these parents. You're going to be born at this time. You're going to have this astrology shaping the way you are thinking and the way the world around you is thinking. And so that is going to bring to you certain opportunities to fulfill your plan, so to speak. But because of things that happen unpredictably, since not every, God did give us free will, since free will is, people may not do the things that give you what you thought, give you the opportunity to do what you thought you could do. You may also be exposed to less desirable influences, people who do not uplift you or help you in positive ways. There are people who make decisions for which are not good, and they're taking actions which are not good, such as deciding not to go to work, but deciding to be a thief and take other people's goods, or join a gang while they are growing up, which then puts them into a bad influence among other people. And so they never get around to fulfilling their promise of doing what it is they wanted to do when they were in spirit. They are distracted by the physical plane. So when we are saying to you, when I am saying to you that sometimes parents, grandparents, set up relationships that we shall all be together, and we are going to have, there will be one of us, a child, for his own reason, and he is our friend, and this is it. He wishes to come in with great obstacles in his life, that he is going to need extra help, that he is going to need extra guidance. And so we will all be there for him as his parents, his grandparents, his brother, his sister, to help him. Now, in that helping, siblings, brothers and sisters, may decide to adopt a position where they are not happy being in this household where there is a person with this big problem, and they may not progress in their life. It becomes a challenge for them, other than the nobility with which it seemed easy to do when you were in spirit. So many plans are made, and some simply are not fulfilled. That is all that I can say. Because on the physical plane, you still have free will. And you will think, and you will come to your own conclusions, and you will observe, and you will learn, and come to more conclusions. And so sometimes you will fulfill your noble goal, and you will do everything that you wish to do. And these are not necessarily the most successful people. You may not, it may not be a especially good life, except in a very small way. But it may be that it is important for that spirit to have that experience, or to do something for the knowledge and the understanding that it needs. So, yes, sometimes it is amazing the planning that goes on, but it is very difficult once you get to the physical plane, because as I finished explaining, you create the life that you live, and you create the world in which you live through your perceptions. So what you experience, you may not perceive that experience as you thought you might when you were in spirit. And as a result, your actions and your thoughts will be different. And sometimes you will learn from them, and you will overcome them, and you will end up being a wonderful person. And sometimes you turn into someone like Hitler. Not a very good person, but it was his karma to come with good ideas. He wanted to be a leader of his people, to manifest the best society for them. But unfortunately, the ways in which he chose to do that were not applicable to causing great success, prosperity, happiness for thousands and thousands of people. Caused them harm, caused their physical deaths. And even those that survived often suffered greatly. So once you're in the physical, all plans are off. Do you have a further question?
No, I need to ponder on all this. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
Well, you were
I've
most
come to the conclusion that it's as simple as you decide to incarnate, and whatever plans you might think you're going to accomplish are just simply possibilities. Because once you're here, it's different.
You are correct.
So
Yes,
it's all
once you-
possibilities.
It is
Wow.
difficult sometimes.
Thank you so much.
You are most welcome. I thank you for your presence here today and for your questions, because all those who are listening benefit from your questions.
Yes.
And so, as there are no more questions for this evening, I will say good night. I give you all my blessings. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Hi, I'm back. Okay, everybody, I think that's it for the end of the evening, and I hope you enjoyed tonight's presentation. And remember, I'm going to say good night too. So remember, I love you all. Good night.